I'm so excited to have my guest today, Dr. Nathan Riley. It's an honor to have you here today, and your approach to natural fertility and holistic gynecology is truly inspiring, and we can't wait to learn more about it, about how lifestyle modifications and a holistic approach can impact hormonal health and fertility. And your PRP fertility program sounds like a truly unique one. I can't wait to learn more about. So without further ado, everyone, let's dive into our conversation and explore the fascinating world of genetics. Woohoo! Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you, Lulu. As I mentioned before we hit the record button, you've been in my head for the last several days trying to prepare to be able to keep up with you. You bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience into the space, and some of your past guests are just brilliant people. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I really got to get ready for this. It is a real honor and privilege to be here with you on your show.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to meet people from all over the world and interview them and talk about health. It's like one of my favorite things about my podcast. And I love talking about fertility because it's such a huge subject, as you well know. And we're going to be talking about that today. But before we go deep down to the fallopian tube.
That's great. I love that.
All right, we're going to have some good one-liners. But let's have you share a little bit about you, about your background and your journey that's brought you here today, so we can all get to know you a little better before we dive deep into the fascinating topics today.
For somebody who's been rewarded and incentivized to answer questions on exams correctly more than my peers, and then to emerge as a physician, I feel like I'm very blessed because I chose a field that I will never completely understand. It's like pregnancy, from fertility all the way through this postpartum period, even menopause, women's health as a man especially is this incredible. There's this mystique around it. So when I was in all of those years of training, and I've got 2 board specialties, I'm doing anthroposophic medicine training, I'm training in biogeometry, I'm training in the Institute for Functional Medicine. It's like this never ends. But at the end of the day, my big questions are around this incredible miracle of conception and childbirth. And for me, it's like I don't have an answer to that test. And that's why it was so mystical to me and so compelling as a specialty. So I found myself in training and not really liking how it was going in the hospital setting, because it seemed like they expected everybody to have an answer for a prolonged labor period or whatever. Let's intervene, let's do the medicines, let's do surgery. From fertility all the way through the menopausal period, I was just finding myself utilizing these tools that I had become a master in, so to speak, far more than I had hoped. And the mystique remained, but it was a little kernel I kept within me. And since stepping out of the conventional model, I'm able to really go deep, as you mentioned, down the fallopian tube in order to really understand what's happening with these declining fertility rates, these high interventions, 1/3 of babies coming by C-section, 1/3 of pregnancies being induced in the United States. It really allows me to start picking that apart and not having anybody telling me that I'm doing it right or wrong. It's really, what is the outcome? How satisfied, how happy, how pleasurable was this experience for my clients? And not everybody has that orgasmic, ecstatic birth, but it doesn't have to also result in trauma that is unnecessarily imbued by the healthcare practitioners and nurses and everything within the system. Not to discredit them, they do great work. It's just, I wanted to do it differently. And I get the pleasure of doing home birth now and doing natural fertility and reading books that are written by great people that are not triple, quadruple board certified doctors. They're just people who have been present and have held reverence for this process. I feel like I have the best job in the world because my other specialty is end of life care. So I get to be with birth and death, and my life is very rich. It's been a journey. It has definitely been a journey, though.
Yes, I love that, Nathan. I especially liked what you said about the mysticism of women's health, because I think that there is that element all the time, even just not even from the male perspective, but from the female perspective as well. A lot of women especially aren't even taught anything about how their body works, what it's like to even conceive a child. That's all mysticism. And in the history of our time, it's been almost hidden taboo to talk about those things. And I think that you're a part of that forefront where knowledge is power. empowering women to really understand about their bodies, that innate wisdom that is within all of us, back from the beginning of time, within our genetics, deep within the core of our DNA. Yeah, that's a deep conversation as well. But I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm excited to have you on the show. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I'll also say, for those out there who are like, another white doctor telling us what to do, that is not my jam. I do things so unconventionally that I'm not even employable anymore because I do things in such a radically different way. I am fully in support of the traditional midwifery model of care. I had some experience with home birth as a resident, and I was like, this is the magic. It came back to me. And we even had a home birth of our own. Both were natural conceptions. My wife takes very good care of herself, and she was able to honor her body and our baby with a home birth just about a year ago. We're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk over here.
Yeah.
And that really does make a difference. It really makes a difference to my clients, to the people who I've been supporting over the years. And unfortunately, I don't think that's something that many doctors feel confident saying, because they have their 401k and their high paychecks, and OBGYNs can get paid a lot of money, especially the fertility docs. I just, for whatever reason, I wasn't compelled to continue down that path. And if you're a healthcare professional out there and you have doubts about where your career is taking you, there are ways to do this differently that you can feel so much more whole in and of yourself in how you practice this medicine. Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, but I'm so happy I landed here with you talking on this podcast.
Yes, exactly. I think you really hit it on the head about the reasons, like even myself took that alternative health practitioner route as a naturopathic physician, because but I really started as, my story is long, but if you're listening, you can go and listen to episode 000 and find out more. But
Yes,
that's a little key in there. But I think that the journey within each of us is really helping us to have a forward front for alternative healthcare, for a new way of health. I'm going to see it evolve quickly, I hope, over the next, even just this year, 2023.
And I really do implore people to consider, how is it going for you? Whether you're a healthcare worker or you're a person who's seeking support with your health, fertility, whatever, how is this whole thing going? It's not going very well. People are in trillions of dollars of debt from their medical school, but also their medical care. And the doctors seem to be unhappy. They're overworked. They're probably underpaid given how much of themselves they give to this job. How is it working? If any glimmer of doubt rests there, let's build something different. We don't have to burn the system down. Let's just explore. Let's be curious again. That's what makes this fun. And that keeps me going every day.
We're creators of our own reality, so let's create a new healthcare system that is fun. People enjoy. Yes. So let's talk about fertility / infertility and all of that above or below. So let's talk about lifestyle modifications first, because I think this is a great place. As you mentioned earlier, your wife is in this state of health, but I think a lot of women going into conception are not in that place of health. And so what are some of those lifestyle things that women can tune in, listen to really optimize their hormones and really improve the whole piece of conceiving naturally, which I think is a whole thing in itself?
Yeah. First off, if you are listening and you've been frustrated by this process, join the club. We've all been there. What we were taught in middle school was, if an erect penis goes into this little sleeve of tissue and a semen comes out, then a baby's going to happen 9 to 10 months later.
Right. Boom.
Sometimes that happens. That easy. But it isn't that easy for almost anybody, including me. When my wife and I were decided, hey, it's time to start trying. Who hasn't heard that phrase? My wife had the goalkeeper pole, the IUD. And by the way, I don't think she'll ever go back to any sort of hormonal contraception. No, she won't, because I have a vasectomy now. But that was a hard journey in and of itself. Won't go down that path. But she had an IUD, she had it removed, and it was like, okay, baby's going to happen now, get ready. Month after month passed until finally she was like, you're getting frustrated. Why don't you let me take care of this? And she knew what her cervical fluid looked like. She wasn't even doing it formally. The fertility awareness tracking, which is a part of my practice now, is helping to educate women, if they're open to it, about what these changes may look like. Sure enough, within a cycle or two, she invited me out to have a drink after work. I was in fellowship in San Diego, and the waiter, she was like, "Can you take a picture of us? We never get pictures together, babe." And he said, "Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, say we're pregnant." And I was like, "We're pregnant? What? No." And she was like, "I took a test, you dum-dum." And so the feeling, that exaltation, that weight off of my shoulders was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to be a dad. Not really taking into account that maybe we could have a miscarriage or whatever. Certainly we didn't, but that feeling of, oh, the weight of the world, for whatever reason, I was carrying that on my shoulders.
Mm.
Being able to shrug that off, that feeling is what I want to be able to give so many couples. And unfortunately, many of them start in their OBGYN's clinic. That's great. Good start. They've done the ultrasound, they've done the lab work. I'm fertile based on my lab work, but it was like a one moment in time. They checked your FSH, your LH, your estrogen, your progesterone, and nobody knows what to do. So the next thing you know, you find yourself in the IVF clinic. They do a couple other tests, and bam, you're looking at a $12,000 to $15,000 bill for this process. It's the average, Lulu. So what I want to reassure everybody is, and what I did for this couple, is to say, have we turned over every stone before you get to that big price tag? Even if you do end up with that big price tag, IVF is in and of itself, it's an independent risk factor for a variety of pregnancy complications, because nobody in that beautiful clinic that you went to ever looked upstream to determine what is the issue here. Is this a physical issue? Is this something on the mental, the emotional, even the spiritual level that is getting in the way of inviting this baby into your center of life energy, your womb? So that's where we start. That's the big thing, is even if you don't conceive naturally and you end up with IVF, your health on all of those levels is going to be dialed in. It's far more in your control than meets the eye whenever you go to ACOG's website or the American Academy of Family
Right.
Practice or whatever.
Yeah. So it's all just facts, and it doesn't have the, like you said, the upstream or any of the other factors that come into play. Life, which I think is, life. That's, wait a minute. What about the people that have life coming in, the stress factors?
Exactly. In the United States, 15% roughly of couples report fertility challenges, whatever that means to them. Maybe thought it was going to happen on the first shot, or it's been 3 years, whatever. They're frustrated with the process. I want to give everybody the encouragement, the permission to lean into the possibility that you're not infertile. We just haven't figured out what's going on here. And we need to go deeper than just a one-time blood test, a hysterosalpingogram, and a pelvic ultrasound. It requires us to treat you like a complex organism, not a car. So
exactly.
So that's the jump off point, is getting people to be reassured that you're probably not infertile. We just need to dial in your lifestyle a little bit. And we start with 6 fundamental foundational principles. How are you eating or nourishing yourself, let's say, on a food basis? How are you moving? Are you building some muscle mass? Are you flexible? Is your spine mobile? How are you sleeping? How are you hydrating? How are you breathing? And your mindset. The mindset is probably the biggest thing, which includes, I fold into there, your connection to something bigger than you. Have you relinquished the control over this process? Because there are factors that I've mentioned that are controllable. But what about your connection to your partner? Has this become a mechanical routine thing where the pee strip change, we have to have sex now, and then you're just like pumping, and then
you're like, wait a minute, this is the turkey baster's out. You're like, wait, this is not part of my vision.
Foreplay, that's not going to get you guys ready to do this. So that intimacy piece is actually a big part of this as well. And really saying, don't you worry about that. Let me worry about that. I can put all of my tools to work. That's the foundation of the lifestyle approach. And we can go whichever way you want there.
Yes, I love those foundations, because not only do they apply to fertility, of course, they apply to every piece of our health, which I think is, I'm talking all the time to my patients about what are the foundations of your health? Where are you sitting in those particular aspects? And when it comes to the piece about, I want to jump back about, you talked a lot about fertility and the aspects, and I'd like to talk about some of the misconceptions about infertility that you might have come across, because I think that's a huge piece. We could talk a lot about IVF and the journey that so many women are experiencing with just when they're told immediately that they're infertile. And then they go down that, like you said, the expense road, and then also the trauma road about all. It's not an easy process. And some of my patients have had IVF procedures, like multiple, which is not easy. And the outcome is very challenging for the body.
Yeah. Yeah. Since you do love to focus on genetics, let's talk about genetics and specifically epigenetics, which if you look at, there's been some really cool studies done with, let's talk about cancer. Everybody think about cancer. It runs in the family. It's a genetic disorder. Okay. But they've done studies where they've taken a healthy cell and they've taken a cancer cell and they've transplanted the nucleus of the healthy cell into the cancer cell, and the cell remains cancerous. They will take the nucleus of a cancer cell and pop it into a healthy cell, and that cell remains healthy. So when we talk about genetics, of course, you and I were already riffing on this before, huge. It is the blueprint, perhaps, for what types of things are going to be possibly created by those genes, but it's not the entire thing. The external signals are really the foreman coming into the plant and saying, here's what we're going to build today. So all of those foundational principles, including the mindset, including how is life force energy moving through you? These things all play in. So it's not just a matter of what's the magic supplement to get pregnant. That is a part of it, because that will help turn on or turn off different genes. But more importantly, what is the environment that your cells are living in? And I don't mean just the woods and nature. That is a big part of it. But what are you putting in and what are you putting out? How is this environment outside of the cell impacting how your cell's genes are expressed? And this is even more important when you consider that when you, Lulu, were inside of your mother, were carrying gametes, your ova, your oocytes, eventually create your kids, one half of your kids from a chromosome.
Right. Yes, a half.
Just half. And the same goes for men, right? Now, granted, a man is not born with all of the sperm they're ever going to have. That's why we can shoot out like 1 billion every single time that we ejaculate. But the point being that this is a delicate process. Whatever you're putting in and surrounding your cells, specifically your gonads, is the product you're going to get. Higher quality eggs, higher quality sperm, etc. And this goes for all of your body tissues.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I really love that concept of, I always think about when I'm talking to my patients about, you think of a sewer, right? Are your cells living in a sewer, a water of sewer? They floating in this like muck and junk, and you're trying to do all the things that you're envisioning with your body, but we have to work on the inside layer within ourselves. Our body's a big tube, and if nothing's going out of the tube, then we're not going to be able to create a healthy environment for the cells. And all the things you talked about with epigenetics is so important. We have so many things that impact our health, and I think we're really starting to be aware right now. Oh yeah, you mentioned that preconception with myself and my mom. When my dad first found out that I was coming into the world, right, and my mom was pregnant, he immediately gave up smoking. This was in the 70s. And he immediately gave up smoking, and I'm sure that impacted my upbringing, my health, and every piece. And I'm always so thankful for that. And I think about that as how it helped me to create my environment, and how people are creating their own environment today and looking at the health from that toxicity level. And when we're looking at that approach, when we're looking at how the cells function from that holistic perspective, what do you think is really that kind of like crux of different viewpoint from, especially how, as you were you started your career, maybe that was how you were brought up, started your career in that Western perspective, and then you moved over almost, not it's like Eastern, but more in that holistic approach. How do you think that really differs from that cellular perspective about, it's not just maybe you're giving a pharmaceutical for something that's going on in the system, but now we're looking at like the real depth of how a cell functions in the body, especially a fertility piece and the actual reproductive cycles?
Wow, there's a lot there.
Yes, that was a big question. Sorry.
The first part of my answer, and let's start with just this and then we'll build on that.
Yeah, we'll build on it.
When you're in your medical training, a lot of people get that MD after their name, or more importantly, they finish, like if they're in the allopathic system or osteopathic system in the US, they finish residency and now they're a whatever, an orthopedic surgeon. You finish your residency training, your apprenticeship begins. That's what I want people to really understand, because you've been indoctrinated, for lack of better terms, through a way of viewing a process to help a person achieve whatever the outcome might be, utilizing the pharmaceuticals, surgical procedures, etc., that your attendings have become most comfortable with. It might be policy procedure, it might just be the culture of the practice or whatever else. If you can honestly say that the way that you learn to do things always resulted in the optimal outcome, then keep doing what you're doing. But most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, will realize, going back to cancer, that the single gene or even polymorphism theory of genes of cancer hasn't really produced much of a fruitful, so to speak. We've been at war with cancer now for like however many years, decades. And obviously we need to be looking a little bit outside the box now. We should be able to be wondering, why are more people getting cancer and going into remission and then getting a recurrence later? What the hell is going on with this cancer thing?
Right.
So for me, I realized the same about pregnancy and fertility. It was like, this can't be the end all be all, guys, where we're just shooting people up with these synthetic analogs or endocrine disrupting agents, right? To force the body to get pregnant. Isn't there some reason that more and more people are struggling with fertility? Of course there is, but you have to be willing and you have to be incentivized to look outside the box to do that. So I just realized things weren't working the way I wanted it to. Let me see if there's somebody else that has a better idea. And that's when you start opening doors and finding even more doors behind that, because there's a lot of unknowns. Being is actually an intrinsic part of the scientific process. You have to be willing to be wrong when you make a hypothesis. And I think that we've hit a dead end for a lot of our hypotheses as to how conception happens. Hell, we don't even know how labor actually starts. We still don't really know what causes it to start. We know we can get it going, but we don't really know why it starts. So anyways, starting with the question of what is life is, I think, really important.
Oh, really? We're going there. This is like a Monty Python episode.
Yeah, I know. It feels like that in my life too, because I'm studying this anthroposophic medicine, which is born out of the body of work of Rudolf Steiner. And they start with that. It's, if you can't explain to me what is different between a plant and a rock, then we can't go forward to more complex organisms. But most people out there in medicine haven't really ever answered that question. And I'm not talking about like abortion. When does life start? That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what makes a cell living. What is that spark that creates this heartbeat at a couple days of conception? Like what the hell are we talking about here? So starting at those fundamentals enables you to say, okay, we have one model here that works for some people, but for many other people, including the $14 billion or whatever it is, $1.4 billion fertility industry, a lot of people aren't being served by that paradigm. So we're smart people. Let's go deeper. Let's start picking this onion apart a little bit more. I don't know if I answered your question, but we'll start there.
No, I think that was good. Yes. And I do the piece you just mentioned in the end of that about the onion aspect or the onion analogy, because I think that's so important for people to understand that we have many layers when it comes to our health, but also if we think of that in relationship to fertility and conception, it's not just one piece, right? It's like, you can't just say, like you mentioned earlier, take the magic supplement, right? You have to look at all those foundations on that onion. Is the flower opening, right? in that analogy, to allow that conception place to take place. And as you were mentioning the foundations of health, I wanted to talk about one piece with stress, which I think is such a huge piece. You mentioned like mindset was number one, which I agree. How does stress particularly impact hormonal health and fertility? And what are some that you've seen in your practice and some that you recommend, like effective stress reduction techniques that actually women that are out there trying to conceive can start using right now in their daily activities?
Yeah, there's a lot of like apps and try this meditation and sleep more. And that's all.
There's a lot of stuff out there.
Everybody has that secret, and everybody has tried meditation and they blow it after their 3 days. They've done it for 3 days and they forget. And they're like, meditation is just baloney. It's all important, but let's also consider how we incentivize people to live nowadays. It's all about productivity, showing you're valuable, showing your worth, showing your bigger house, showing how successful you are in your podcast, how many hours you work has become a badge of honor. I've worked really hard, and on my obituary, it's going to read, Nathan really worked hard. which sounds like the dullest obituary ever. But
Yeah, I think you got to rewrite that one.
yeah, can somebody revise this a little? I'm turning posthumously, turning in my grave. The point is that when we incentivize people to just work hard, no pain, no gain, what we tend to forget is about the benefits of just slowing down and being still. When you're still, when there's less distraction, when you're just being great in solitude, really great revelatory things can happen. Number one, your heart rate lowers, your stress lowers. You might even find it's easier to sleep, but nobody out there is like paying you to slow down. So we have a problem on the societal level, and I'll share a very short story. I was that guy. I was an Ironman distance triathlete. I went into med school and started doing CrossFit and coaching CrossFit, had big shoulders, chest, abs were ripped. I had a 12 pack, and I was really proud of my physique. And then residency slowly chips away at you and you're so tired, but I was determined to keep my physique. And I was on 6 weeks of night float where I wasn't ever seeing sunshine. And between shifts, I had about 6 hours to sleep and eat and
Mm.
maybe have sex. I don't know. Probably not because I'm just so tired. And I would cut it even shorter because I wanted to maintain that physique. So my CrossFit gym was on the way, short walk to the hospital where I was working. And I would stop there and rip out like 20 to 30 minutes of grueling exercise and just pushing my limits. And after that, about halfway through that 6 weeks of night float, I remember we don't drink a lot of alcohol anymore, but at the time it was like a beer or two. My wife was a bartender. And we'd have a beer or two at night and just hang because we didn't get to see each other much. It was a Friday night and I was sipping a beer and I started getting rigors. I was like, whoa, I'm
Whoa.
sick and I was feeling warm. So I was like, "Oh, man, I better go to bed. I probably have a GI bug." And my wife tucked me in and kissed me goodnight. And I woke up the next morning, I was sweaty, covered in all these blankets. I got to go to work. And it passed. I was like, that was funny. Look how fast I recuperated. 2 weeks later, it happened again. 2 weeks after that, it happened again. And I was like, something's wrong here. So I went and did all the blood work. And what was funny on the blood work was my hemoglobin A1C was a little bit elevated. My white cells were depleted completely. And my blood pressure was a little bit high. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? I eat, I'm exercising, I'm doing all those things. But what I had been neglecting was sleep. And the doctors said, you're fine. And I was like, okay.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not fine, guys. I'm having rigors out of nowhere. Like I look at me, I feel and look great. And so it turns out that I had adrenal fatigue, which was laughed at. People still in medicine, there's a big review article that came out a year or two ago. Adrenal fatigue is a myth.
Right.
And what we're talking about with this is your adrenal cortex in particular has three main pathways: your salt regulating, your sugar regulating, and your sex regulating hormones. Steroid hormones, pregnenolone made from cholesterol is the precursor to all of those. When you're in flight or fight and you're stressed out, you're not slowing down, you're not sleeping. You know this, Lulu. I'm just elaborating for your.
Oh no, I love this. Is my favorite part. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the geeky part. I get to geek out.
Yeah. So in order to keep you alive, you need those first two pathways, the salt and sugar regulating. That's your aldosterone, your glucocorticoids like cortisol, and your sex hormones drop. So my libido was gone. I was my
right in the tanker.
Yeah. I had the abs, but I felt sorry, I don't know if I can curse on your podcast.
It's okay. Yes, you can. It's okay. Not like crazy words, but you know, the basics.
I've got toddlers, so I have to
tone it in.
So anyways, I then just had to start prioritizing sleep. I did some probiotics. I got my gut back in order. I just cut out alcohol and sugar and everything. I did the whole life challenge, it was called at the time, and I was back. But I found myself in adrenal fatigue again about 2 months ago. And I was just pushing myself way too hard. The point of all of this diatribe that was not even asked for is that you can be doing all of the other things, but if you are not managing your stress, and stress comes from toxins in the environment, it comes from your relationships, it comes from your own inner self-talk, it comes from you holding yourself way up here, your expectations of yourself are here, and you're just never going to be good enough, and poor sleep and alcohol and sugar and all this other stuff. The stress management piece is like the umbrella piece for all of this. Poor movement patterns can lead to unnecessary and even detrimental stress on your body, specifically if you're not in a significant period of anabolism, meaning building up and recovering during a diurnal sleep cycle. of all of the things that people come to me for, if you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night, I know it's hard. I know that it's not incentivized, but let's do that first. Let's stop exercising. Let's start walking in the woods. Let's do some qigong. Let's clean up diet, but let's prioritize everything towards getting to bed a little bit earlier and trying to have the best sleep hygiene so you can get really, truly restful sleep.
Oh my gosh. I love that because I know all about everything you talked about, being in med school, running like totally on fumes, having adrenal fatigue, and that the stress component that I see so many women, especially, carrying in their lives right now, right? It's like they are trying to have a baby, they're trying to work, they're trying to run a family, they're trying to clean the house, do the shopping. What happened to all those tasks? It became like just one, maybe running a family is like so hard. And then, yeah, burnout.
I think the burnout, especially healthcare practitioners, do not take care of themselves. Like we're not
No,
living
we're the worst.
we're not like in some ivory tower drinking some sort of
The elixir of life.
elixir of life. Yeah. So we're not really the best people to be talking about this because we have very rarely do we truly take care of ourselves. And it is an ongoing journey even for us. But it is so important to state that while exercise is important, so many people now are addicted to exercise. And if you are not feeling motivated and well rested in the morning, do not push your cardiovascular system. Take a walk in the woods, do some qigong, restorative yoga. You can still move. It's great to move. These types of movement practices, this is a little language I stole from Paul Chek, who's a friend and mentor of mine, is the working in. You can move energy. You can actually generate energy within yourself, but you don't need to push your adrenaline to the max. Your adrenaline and noradrenaline being the two other major hormones that come from a different part of your adrenals. They're going to be kicking as long as you tell it I'm in trouble in finances or my life, or I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever. This can manifest in so many ways. Rest, digest, take it easy. If you're feeling tired, you need to rest and watch the caffeine. Like you're not doing great just because you feel good after you have a pot of coffee. So we just have to take all of these things into account.
Yes, coffee is not good for the adrenal system. It sends it into total cyclone depths of the black hole because it just is this false sense of energy. And then it really tanks your system into a much, much lower place. Yeah. And I really enjoyed what you said about just getting out of nature and listening to your body, tuning in if you're needing that place of exercise, and really knowing if your body is fatigued or not. I think that's a place that a lot of women in general don't even understand because it's that pushing that nature to just push and just go that next step. So that awareness of knowing, okay, this is what listening, that self-care piece, knowing what it is to feel stressed, knowing what it is to feel fatigued, asking for the support, which I think is another whole conversation, right?
Yeah. If I had learned that 10 years ago, gosh, just whenever a person's, hey, is there anything I can help with? Give them something.
Yes.
They want to love you. They want to love you by helping you, especially in that postpartum period. Like, get the help. Like, you don't need to prove yourself. You just gave birth and dad, just became a dad. Let your body replete itself. Let people love on you in this way. We all want to be able to help you. Give yourself a break. You just gave birth. Let those adrenals recover. Your body's going through so much, especially if you went through that fertility journey.
Right.
You've just been run through the ringer. You've got to replete yourself. There is no badge of honor if you end up in adrenal fatigue and you can't even get out of bed to take care of your kids.
Totally. Yeah. A friend of mine just had a baby who's 9 weeks old. So cute. And I went over to visit and she said, I haven't had a shower in a week. I was like, what? So I said, okay, give me the baby. We'll go take a shower. Let me help. And then I said, and you need a nanny. So she just let me know today that she got a nanny, which if you're listening and tuning in, I'm so happy for you.
Congratulations. I don't know you, but you did awesome.
Yes. Way to take care of yourself. Yes. Okay, another piece I wanted to go back on, I got sidetracked, is we talked about stress. And then you mentioned a little bit about food in the very beginning, like that foundation and nutritional piece. And I'd love for us to talk about the connection between nutrition. I don't like the word diet, but I know a lot of people understand that piece. So nutrition and fertility, and particularly like foods. Let's talk about like 3 of your faves. So you like, hands down, these are really beneficial for women, especially trying to conceive in that beginning stages of fertility.
I have five.
Okay, five. We can talk about five.
I'll give you the first three, which I think are, I'll give you the first three, which I think are the most important, especially if you're on the fertility journey. And by the way, gentlemen, 40 to 50% of couples that are experiencing fertility challenges, it's on us. Over the past several decades, we have seen a steep decline in the quality, the number, the quality, and the motility of our sperm. So just because your semen analysis was normal, that's normal compared to most Americans, and most Americans are just like you, having troubles with fertility. So let's not deceive ourselves in putting more of the weight on the women in our lives to shore up their lifestyle. You have just as much, if not more, of a role here. So having said that, you're going to get almost every nutrient that you could possibly need in your body, truthfully, through organ meats. I know, gross, right? Bivalve shellfish like oysters and mussels. And I'd probably throw eggs in there. Between those three, you don't need to spend money on prenatal vitamins. In fact, my wife didn't take any prenatals throughout, I guess, either of our pregnancies. We just eat a lot of those foods. If I were to add the other two, it would be a really high quality fish oil, like a fermented cod liver oil, bone broth. Those five, that's like nature's multivitamins. If you were on a desert island and you had a supply of that, you could live for quite a long time, because you're going to get so much nutrients, both macro and micronutrients there. I suppose if you had some sweet potatoes, you'd be full, you'd be happy.
It's a big pantry on the desert island right there.
You had those things and you were relying on organ meats and shellfish and whatnot, you would really dialed in. And the reason I mention these is that when we're talking about nutrients, we have to also consider, when you feed your body, you're feeding the bacteria in your intestines, and the bacteria break these things down, they modify them in order to facilitate the transport of these foods into your bloodstream. So most of my clients will ultimately, in my fertility program, you do a stool analysis, and then we use that to also guide how are we going to repair your gut. Because if we don't have a healthy gut microbiome, healthy gut lining, your issues are going to continue. And it doesn't matter how many of those multivitamins you're taking, the organ meats and whatnot, you're not going to be able to absorb these nutrients. So we get your gut in order. And then by maximizing your nutrition here, your body's going to take everything it needs from those foods. And the shellfish in particular for men, 3 cans of the Crown Prince or whatever, it's the brand you can get at Whole Foods, is going to load you up with so much zinc and selenium and fatty acids and so many other incredible micronutrients that you really can't absorb all that well if you're just taking it in supplement form. So you could supplement with them, but you're going to have a much better, what's called bioavailability. You're going to be absorbing them in their proportional amounts with some of these other cofactors and other nutrients along the way. So I'm curious what you think about the organ meats and oysters and mussels. Do you eat those at all?
Excuse me. So as far as organ meats go, I'll break that down. I think that's so important, and I 100% approve of it, because I think we've lost so much of our good quality of the animal. It's so broken down, what we get like in a little packaged plastic form of, here's your chicken breast. We've lost so many pieces for those nutrients that our body really needs, which I think that's contributing to the toxic sludge that we mentioned earlier. So yeah, organ meats. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
It's a stress on the body too, to not be nourished. That's a state of stress that leads to inflammation. Yeah, getting those nutrients is actually relieving a lot of this toxic burden on your body, because it fuels those processes whereby your body and your liver can detoxify itself.
Yes, completely. And I think if you're not a person who's used to eating organ meats, there's ways that you can start incorporating them into your nutritional plan, disguising them, so to speak, where they don't have the same flavor because they're not exactly something you might be used to, or cooking them in a different way, just slowly experimenting, whether that's making like a pate and putting it on a cracker, some things that kind of you can start really enjoying. And
Yeah.
as far as shellfish, really important, especially the component of zinc that you mentioned. So important. Just zinc for the dink, I always like to say, is men need that aspect of zinc just as much as women do for progesterone. And I think shellfish is a really large component, and that's also lacking. A lot of people don't eat enough shellfish because maybe they don't know how to cook it well, or they weren't grown up with eating shellfish and fish in general. I think not as many fish is not as highly as part of a nutritional plan as it needs to be. And so
Yeah.
if those components aren't coming into your nutritional plan, I think it's really important to bring them in, and slowly. If you're like, okay, maybe not starting all those things you mentioned
Yeah.
at
Oh, yeah.
one time if you're not used to it, and you can take those as a supplements, but like one piece about that you mentioned that is important, I think, is that the gut health piece. And if we're going to bring in a supplement, like you mentioned, and our gut is just like not working properly in any way, we're not going to absorb it. So it's just wasted all those supplements. You just basically pooped them and peed them out. So I think you got to address the gut, just like you said.
Yeah, and one other nutrient. So there's two nutrients that they seem to elude this wellness space, and I think it's because we've just recently started talking about them. The one is not so new. That is vitamin K2. It was factor X or activator X, I think what Price called it. Animals, fish, and whatnot, they're going to eat algae and plants and grass, especially if the grass is grown in healthy soil. This is the regenerative farming movement that's happening. We have healthy soil, healthy grass, healthier cows. They're going to get the vitamin K1. K1 is converted to K2 within these organisms, and then you eat them because they become accumulated in their tissues. And now you've got this vital vitamin K2. But the other one is taurine. So moral of that story is you really can't get vitamin K2 unless you're eating animal products. Taurine is another one. It's a non-essential amino acid, but oysters and mussels, these bivalve shellfish, tend to be rich in that. If it's non-essential, you should be able to produce it yourself. The problem is the demand in pregnancy is so great that you actually do benefit from additional taurine. And taurine, it is an amino acid. You can produce it yourself, but when we're looking at its role in fetal development, it actually plays a role in the pancreas, the fetal pancreatic development, the actions of insulin in the fetus, and therefore it has a critical role in brain development, eye development, bone growth, all of these things. It also is a potent antioxidant, so it's actually protective of the DNA of the developing fetus. So you can't get taurine any other way apart from eating animal products in order to boost your own sort of intrinsic development or production of that. All of this is to say that and I know I'm probably going to miff some people off, it is very hard to get pregnant and to have a totally healthy pregnancy and fast postpartum recovery if you're vegan.
I agree with that. I do.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier.
Yeah, and I think there's also the blood type component there where some people really need. I myself was a vegan for 13 years, and I came to some kind of realization one day. I was like, you know what? I'm just not feeling, and I also felt like I didn't have freedom to make healthy choices. So I felt I was being limiting myself from being healthy, basically.
Yeah.
And so I just said, okay, I'm just going to open the doorway. And if there's something that I am drawn to eat, I'm going to listen to my body and I'm going to eat it. And I think that's a piece that looking at that, really what your body needs when you're pregnant, whether you're looking for conception, postpartum, what is your body really needing? And I think that's the piece that's missing. Okay, maybe you were vegan or vegetarian before coming in, but is it what you and your baby needs? The real nutrients that's driving you to be healthy, that's going to help you to not have any problems during pregnancy, to give you energy, help you to breastfeed. All those pieces of components are really important. And I think I agree with that component. And like you said, some people might not agree, but I do.
Yeah, once you get pregnant, the journey's not over. The journey's just
right. It's just beginning.
I can't tell you how I've had every single vegan client whose birth I've attended has had a very challenging vaginal laceration to repair.
Mm,
And what that tells me is not so much that was a big baby or a small pelvis, which is what we always like to blame it on. It tells me that your tissues were friable, meaning they easily fall apart. So just like with a diabetic who has poor vasculature, the vessels themselves are damaged due to high levels of your high blood sugars over time. Tissue in the perineum and vagina is way more elastic and flexible if you're nourishing through all of the things we mentioned, including bone broth, which comes rich in glycine and a variety of other nutrients. A healthy tissue doesn't tear. So I have very few clients who actually go all the way through completely vegan, and every single time they have had a very challenging to repair laceration. And when I say challenging, it's not just deep. The tissues themselves actually fall apart as you're trying to pull them together.
oh,
So this
wow.
is really important stuff. So
Yeah.
I had a normal pregnancy with, I was just fine. Totally. That's awesome. I really want to hear those stories. And it's like a 5 for 5 that these vegan women who otherwise were very healthy
Mm,
had really gnarly tears. So it's my own little anecdotal evidence, but there is an important reason to have animal products in your pregnancy, including, by the way, we haven't mentioned full fat dairy. I like raw
right.
dairy, raw cheese, so many enzymes and proteins and amino acids and nutrients, including vitamin K too,
Right.
in that milk. Yeah, sorry. I'm so excited about this conversation.
No, don't be sorry. Yes, and that's very important. And I think that's why one of the reasons why working with a health practitioner like yourself is important for the journey, because these are the things that we want to help women with when they're going through the fertility process, through the pregnancy, through the postpartum. What are the tools that can really make the journey easier? I'm not going to say easy necessarily, because there's challenges that are just unexpected in the journey of life, but easier, and make it so that your body recovers easier, so that you're able to support yourself, your family, the baby in that postpartum phase, which is really challenging for women. Especially, we haven't even talked about a cesarean piece, and that changes the complete aspect of the birth of the child, the recovery of the female, the mom, the whole piece. I'd love actually some of your input on that, and what your recommendations are in that cesarean recovery period.
This is like a whole discipline in and of itself. The first thing of
Right.
we talked about, the cesarean C-sections, as I mentioned, 1/3 of babies are coming out by C-section now. That
I
should
know, it's
stun
crazy.
people. That's pretty problematic, I would say, to say the
Yeah.
least. When you have a C-section, some of us like to do it we get started very slowly, we go very quickly in the surgery, and then we end very slowly. So we can maximize your time with your baby, minimize that time of delaying the bonding between you and your baby, and minimizing your pain and your recovery afterwards. If we go through and you're on your back and we're just taking our time, cutting every single layer, it sounds
Mhm.
like that's good surgery. The problem is that tissue will naturally separate along natural planes, and so there are certain techniques that can not only make it faster, but you actually will recover and have less pain afterwards. The first thing is that we as surgeons get accustomed to doing things a certain way. But if you start thinking, what is the minimum I need to do during the surgery in order to shorten the operating time and maybe give them a better chance of a quick and easy, relatively easy and relatively pain-free postpartum recovery, that's really where I'd like to see this going. From an actual, like, feet on the ground, what do we do to recover from C-sections? You have to let your body heal completely. We demand that women are not only back to work in 6 weeks, but they're expected to pump in this weird little room in the corner,
Right.
to be back at it, maybe even in the gym to get their flat abs back in order. The breathing that I mentioned before is really relevant here. If you imagine your abdominal chamber, top is the diaphragm, bottom is your pelvic floor muscles, the front
Mhm.
is your abdominal muscles, and your back is your spine and some musculature. When you breathe in deeply, the diaphragm contracts down, compressing the air inside of that closed abdominal cavity. If you're living your whole life with flat abs because you want to look good on Instagram and you're not fully expanding your belly and relaxing that musculature, the pressure only has one place to go, and it's down on the pelvic floor. So if you're the type of person who's been holding their breath for everything from lifting weights to getting up or carrying your kids or whatever else, you're predisposing yourself to challenges within the pelvic floor. Now, why does this pertain to C-section? Most people are most concerned about how a C-section is done. They cut through muscle. We don't cut through muscle unless we absolutely have to, but we do separate the rectus abdominis muscles and create a glorified rectus diastasis recti. And then sometimes surgeons will suture it back together, but you want that flexibility. It's supposed to be connective tissue, not muscle that's bound together. So when you're getting close to having a baby, whether it's going to be a vaginal birth or a C-section, leave out all of the abdominal strengthening exercises. And when you're recovering, you want to be doing sufficient abdominal and core work in order to tighten your transverse abdominis muscles, which is your natural corset. Bring those muscles back together. That's really what I try to get people to do. Probably 4 to 6 weeks, they can start doing a little bit of movement. But again, being patient, recovering, resting. You just had major surgery. Let's take it easy and just take that time to nest with your baby. I'm not so sure did I get to the root of your question there?
Yes, you did. Yeah, and that was great. And really important information about the recovery time. I think so many women, you hit so many points there. So many women don't have that time to recover, especially from a cesarean, which, like you said, is major surgery, and giving that space for recovery and listening to your body. And I think that we're seeing, like you said, that a third of the births are cesarean. That's a huge number. And I'm always amazed now that when I talk to women, my patients or just friends, and they say, oh yeah, I have this scheduled. I know the exact date. It's like we have come into this place and time where we want everything organized, everything specially dated and the calendar, but birth isn't really like that. Like it's supposed to be this unknown, magical, mysterious thing that comes into place. And I think that some of them, for health reasons, might be warranted, not taking that out of the equation. But I also think that things are being planned a little too detailed, and the mystery of life is being taken out.
Yeah. One story I share with a lot of women who have had a C-section, and they're like beating themselves up over it. And could I have done something differently? Should I have said no to that intervention? Should we have had a home birth? They go through this whole sort of blame and shame game, looking in the mirror. And a story that came to me once, working with a client who had seen some sort of mental health specialist, but they actually did some regression therapy on them. And while she was in this therapy, she actually went inward. We're talking about a sort of an intuitive feeling of being inside the womb with their child. The child was indicating down into the pelvis, I didn't want to go through there. And she looked down, and of course she's postpartum. The baby's not even inside of her anymore. Looking down into her own pelvis from within her uterus, sitting next to her child. So now we're here in this woo-woo world, so to speak.
The best place. I love it.
Yeah, woo-woo, Lulu. Live in my domain. So she's looking down into her pelvis, and it looks like a dank cellar with cobwebs and all this funky stuff. And it turns out that as this therapy session went on, she was told by her child, who had already been born, that I didn't want to go through there, Mom. I had to go out this way. And so what it turns out is that she had a lot of trauma from her childhood trauma, sexual trauma. She had repressed for all of these years. And then her work started going forward to work through these stories that she had repressed, and it had been bound up in her body. And on an energetic level, the baby sensed that there was something not right about going through that passageway. So that child decided, if you believe this story, which I certainly do, that child decided that I don't want to come out that way. And that may be why some babies just need to come through an incision in the abdomen. But 1/3 of babies, now we've got a problem.
Right. Yes. And I think we need to address that for sure and see what the real story is behind those increasing cesarean births. And I think a part of that is probably the IVF piece. I think the whole fertility piece is like we're circling back around to the whole story today, right? As more women are being quote unquote diagnosed with fertility problems and going down the road of IVF, and then having the cesarean as being part of that piece. Right? Because they're like, okay, you've had this particular aspect of your treatment, and now this is what we're recommending for your best delivery, which I think, and I've seen that a lot with patients.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
If you have, we talked a little bit about this, but IVF is an independent risk factor for a lot of pregnancy complications, including iatrogenic birth, meaning preterm birth, meaning we're going to induce you before you and your baby are ready. If we can dial in all of your lifestyle, like I said, maybe 75 to days minimum before you get pregnant, you aren't going to be one of those statistics. You're actually going to have a very healthy, normal pregnancy. But these are the things that are in your control. There's a lot that isn't. These things are. So whatever your resources will allow you to do, whether it's slowing down, sleeping more, eating better, heck, going out and killing your own cow at a biodynamic farm and eating its liver raw in the field, whatever it is that you can do, now's the time to do it if you're thinking about having a family. Not when you feel like it's time to have kids. Right now, if you want to have a baby, let's start working on all of this stuff so that you have plenty of time to dial in all of these epigenetic factors that will play in not only to your ability to conceive, but also how worthwhile was that investment into IVF, and how easy breezy is this pregnancy going to go, and if you want the autonomy in deciding how and where you give birth. Many midwives are not going to be able to take you for a home birth if you've developed bad hypertension or bad gestational diabetes. This is a really big gambit. And I'm telling everybody now, don't wait until you're 36 weeks and you want to pull an audible. Like, the time has probably passed. There's still more that we can do. If you have the resources and you're motivated now, let's start working on this together now.
Yes, Nathan, I 100% agree. And I think that we could talk about this subject for a long time, but I think that was a great kind of like ending and wrap up for today. But before we finish up, there's a couple more things I want us to do. One, tell us about some of the amazing programs that you have, and you have a special offer. So let's talk about that and where people can find you in the world of internet and Instagram, social media, all that good stuff.
Yeah, totally. Thanks again, Lulu, for having me. This has been so much fun. I feel like if we were having coffee or something, we would have gone through 3 pots already.
Right. Like, I drink that much coffee. Chai tea, green tea.
People can find me at Instagram. That's where I'm most active. That's Nathan Riley, OBGYN. I'm sure you'll link all of this.
You know it.
Loveitholistics.com is my website. If you hit /fertility, you'll find my PRP fertility program, which is something I'm very proud of. It's really everything that we've talked about and way more. In addition to meeting with me and reviewing all of the OBGYN stuff, you're going to meet with me multiple times over about 90 days. And you're going to meet with Emily Green, who's a psychic medium, Sarah Tremoli, an effigy breathworker, Valerie Jakobsen, who practices both Chinese and German new medicine, Sarah Gustafson, she's a PhD and a metaphysical counselor, Barrett Freibert, NLP practitioner and a yogi, Sarah Thompson, she wrote a book called Functional Maternity. She's going to be working with you and dialing in functional nutrition. Mike Salemi, he's a movement specialist. You're going to get access to a variety of online courses. You're going to get a bunch of books and supplements and vitamins, including Full Well Fertility's whole lineup. You get biogeometry signatures, which will help to mitigate some of the EMF and the 5G that's around you in your household. We know that impacts fertility, especially sperm quality. The list goes on and on. I tried to put all of this into a package at the fraction of the cost of IVF, so that you don't have to worry about this anymore. Let me help you. Let me carry that worry while we dial in your physical, your mental, your emotional, and spiritual health. We'll be doing fertility awareness tracking, vaginal steaming. The list goes on and on. This is really everything and beyond, with the goal of you conceiving naturally. We start pregnancy planning at the end, and saving you money, obviously, because you're maybe not going to end up with IVF. But if you do, all of those risk factors become mitigated because we have looked upstream to figure out what's causing this. And we've dialed in your health to the best of our abilities.
Oh my God, that program sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure we have the link in that for the show notes that everybody's listening in. And there's also a wonderful code you can use, Genius200, to save $200 off of a program, or also 6 consultations with Nathan. So that's a really great one. We'll put that in the show notes too. And then let's see. Oh, one last fun question. If you had an unlimited budget, what would you do right now to make the biggest impact on the fertilization, the fertility of our planet?
You know what? If I had an unlimited budget, I would be doing exactly what I'm doing, but I would just be sitting there and giving this stuff away. Like I said, that feeling of exaltation when you get that positive pregnancy test, that is worth its weight in gold. I would really be doing that. And I've got this other course that I'm developing. It's called the Born Free Method. And it's really about taking responsibility for your health, what's in your control, what's not in your control. It covers everything that anybody asks me. It's in collaboration with a midwife, Sarah Rosser. But if I could do something like that for people on the fertility journey so that it didn't require multiple visits and multiple additional expenses, if I could just say, go and take that course, that would be the best. I do have a fertility course. It's through the Czech Institute and it's included in PRP. It's limited in the sense that it's like a 6-hour self-guided tour, but there's so much more that we could go into. That's how I would spend my unlimited budget, and maybe get everybody's water clean and their soil healthy in their backyard so they could grow vegetables.
Yes, I love that piece too. Yeah, I think both of those are really possible, and we're going to make those happen, especially the aspect of allowing or helping people to receive the information from you, which is so valuable, and growing their own food in their backyard, which is so easy. If you don't have the space, join a garden in your community, right? Where you can then be a part of the community, growing your food and learning what that's about and then receiving it. So yeah, both of those are important. Nathan, it's been such a joy to have you on the show today. I learned so much and I can't wait to share all of this with our listeners. I'm super excited.
My pleasure, Lulu. For anybody out there listening, thank you for putting your attention towards podcasts that matter. Dr. Lulu, you have such a great energy and you've brought on so many brilliant people onto your show. I know that everybody doesn't have unlimited time to listen to shows. So if you listen to this, thank you for bearing with me through this hour plus. And it's just been a real pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back on. I think there'll be some more topics in our future.